Welcome to Revenue Mind, where revenue leaders get real about mental health. I'm Jolie. Stick around for honest stories, practical insights, and why well-being is the real bottom line. Let's dive in. Hey everyone, welcome to Revenue Mind, a podcast where revenue leaders talk all things mental health. I'm Jolie, your host, and with us is Rob. Welcome, Rob.
Hey, Jolie, how you doing?
Good. Thank you so much for hopping on. I know we're talking all things LivePerson and how I was there for
7
5
months?
seconds, but it's really cool to, like we were talking about, it's really cool to come full circle.
Yeah, it was kind of funny when I reached out to you. You're like, "Oh, I worked at LivePerson in like 2000." I'm like, "Oh wow!" And then I thought about like not to minimize your work there, but I was thinking about all these people that are all around the world, thousands of people over 28 years that just are in every little corner of the world, and then you meet them every now and then. Like this. It's pretty fun for me. Like I'll even meet people on the street, and we're like, "Oh, I worked at LivePerson from 19." 1997 to now. I'm like, okay, and or 2000, and it's like I'm like, wow, okay, so it's cool.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you have a company for, what'd you say, 27 years?
28 years, 28
28?
years.
Yeah. Yeah, 20 years, they're gonna meet a lot of your former employees.
Yeah, they're all everywhere. So, and then there's customers, and it's fun. Like building something long term like that was pretty cool. It was a great experience. Ultimately.
Yeah, that's great. So the question I typically ask that we tend to riff on is, what makes you you?
Wow, that's a big question. What makes me me? I mean, I guess the thing that makes me me is me. I mean, it's like which is that I really fundamentally believe each of us has some sort of purpose, and I mean, my gift is just the ability to take ideas and have a vision and organize it in a way and bring people around it and manifest it into products. And I consider it like a gift, and I'm lucky to have a gift like that. But and then I've always felt that I always want to be in businesses with people. Like and all my companies had something to do with human beings and hopefully connection between human beings. So I think that's kind of my golden thread that's been running through my life. Also, I don't quit. Like I have some weird genetic disposition to not wanting to quit, regardless of how bad things get. I just naturally just feel like you have to work through the hard times to get learnings to get to the other side. Quitting is not a great option. So
Well, those are pretty noble attributes, I must say.
thank you.
I don't know if it was a rumor, but would love to confirm. I actually remember at LivePerson, I think there was a point where it was just a really bad, like, just a tough time in the company,
Yeah,
and you were sleeping in one of the rooms overnight?
the first 2 years of live person, I slept on a couch because I had I started a company out of college, put like 50 grand on credit cards. That company went under, and I ended up in New York City, and I started what would become live person, but I decided to get a small office instead of an apartment, and I didn't want to feel like I was non-business, like I'd quit business. And so I got a guy rented me a sublease of a guy who made t-shirts in downtown Manhattan, a little space. And then I had my couch and a pillow and for, comforter. And for 2 years I lived there. And then I showered at a health club down the block, the New York Sports Club or something. And yeah, so that's how I lived. And it was funny when I went public. It was the funniest thing when I went public. The auditors go through your books, and they go, there's something really wrong with your books. And I said, well, what's wrong? They said, from 1995 to 1997, it looks like you spent expense wise, including your expenses, like $6,000. It's like $500 a month. And I said, yeah. He goes, did you take money out of, like, cash out of, like, where you take it? I said, no, that's what I lived on. And it's like, how could you live in New York City? I said, I slept on a couch, had a health club membership, and ate ramen noodles. Like I didn't have I didn't have a life. I just lived in this thing. It was a very cathartic experience living on it, staying on a couch. So, and I still have the couch. It's an Ikea couch. I brought it with me here when I moved to California. So it always follows me. So
Oh, I love that you brought the couch.
part of the
That's
couch.
that's amazing. Yeah, but I have a not similar story, but I definitely relate to the hustle. I was in my early 20s and I didn't wanna touch my savings, so I got I think I was in between jobs or something, and I signed up for a part-time marketing job and a cashier job at a fast casual place just so I didn't touch my savings. So I get it. Like that just that builder, "I am not gonna quit. No one's gonna bring me down," like, channel Aretha, like, I
Mine
I
was
get that, that's
mine
awesome.
was, I remember I listened to a lot of Pearl Jam and, like, like, a lot of I had this music, like, to just stay alive, and, I tell you, I had a I the I had a guy who was I had this guy, Dr. Morio, that was on a podcast I used to do, Frank was a therapist, psychologist, and a friend of mine told me to meet with him because I was really in the dumps, and, I met with him, and he was there's a lot of stories of Frank. He really changed my life. It got me to think differently, but he said, "I want you to go volunteer and help others." And I remember I was like, "Frank, I'm living on a couch. Like, I don't what is," and he's like, "No, this you'll see." So I went to a homeless shelter at St. Bart's Church on Park Avenue, and I would volunteer like once a month to sleep at the shelter and feed people. And I remember thinking, I'm lucky. Like, there are people who don't have family who, you know, are living because they were abused. I mean, they had tough lives. It wasn't like a lot of them were just, they got into these situations and they didn't have a net. A lot of them didn't have safety net of a family. I always have my mom and dad if I need to. I could always go home in the worst case scenario. And that was interesting because I just, you should never feel sorry for yourself. There's always people that are in worse situations. At least I had a couch and a dream, you know. So
Yeah, that's I feel like in general, it's really hard to not what did they call my generation? The boomerang generation, where everyone went back to their parents,
yes.
especially during COVID. But I think that was a bit of an exception, but I think in general, I think it's really hard to teach that kinda hustle and grit. I think that's intrinsic. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, if you put yourself out there in life and you're really trying to do things that are outside of yourself, which are new things, inevitably you're going to get into some sort of place where it's hard. And I had this podcast called Over the Wall, and I would interview people, and I named it Over the Wall because I said, like, God, whoever, whatever you believe in, is puts up these walls and gives you these challenges. That's what it is, and all of us face it. Like, everyone suffering and challenges in life is all part of the human experience. And some people have, some people end up with cancer at age 5. Like, there's right. There's every there. We all know in humanity, there's every spectrum of suffering, and I just feel like these things are given to you as gifts at times, and you work through them. You know what I'm saying? You just got to kind of work through the hard times. And so I don't think it's that. I think everyone has it in them. I think every human being has the grit. It's a question whether you're going to put yourself in an unsafe environment. You see what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, that was really well put.
if I take someone who's got the most safety and certainty in their life and I stick them in a very uncertain place, it's amazing how you will change to try to survive, to move forward, or you die. I don't know if I've gotten older or just I've seen a lot more things, but then I just started to start, and I ran a company for 28 years. And then I now have two startups, and they're startups. So they literally feel like startups. They're like every day you go in, and they're exciting, and there's ups and downs, a lot more volatility. But I think now I've got young kids. I got 3 young kids, but I definitely have been recently in the last 7 months since my birthday. I've been really putting a practice together to get closer to God. And I don't know. There's like, I think as an entrepreneur, or I don't care if you're selling, like, I'm really fascinated with this idea of having a closer relation, like a conversation with God. And so I'm not some holy. I didn't go to church, so I'm not some, like, I was raised Christian, but I never had that, like, but somehow in the last 7 months, like, I said, man, I'm building something. I'm building these companies. I have these big visions, and I need something. And I will say, as an entrepreneur, if you can get there, and I'm on a journey, it definitely makes things more understandable. It makes things more like just focused, because there's a lot of noise when you're building a company. There's a lot of noise when you're out in the world running teams, leading teams. I don't care what it is, a lot of noise. And how do you cut through the noise? A lot of noise in your head most of the time. It's a lot of noise in your head. You're talking to yourself half the days. It's like crazy talk. So how do you kind of elevate that conversation above yourself?
I completely agree with that. So I did the 12-step program. I'm not super religious, but in AA, you connect to something higher than yourself. They're like, it can be a rock. It doesn't have to be God. It doesn't have to be, it can be the universe. It could be. So for me, it was connection, the power of human connection. And I think COVID taught us a lot about that too. I think like about a couple years after COVID, everyone wants to be in person now. And
I
I
don't know
think
about that. I think people got used to not being in person, if you know what I
oh, I don't
mean.
mean work. I mean, like, we crave well, at least for
Yes,
me, I
I
that yeah, I crave that connection, not necessarily work, but just
I
in
get it.
general. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it's there's a post-COVID world because I saw it even working when I was working live person, like nobody wanted to come back. And I felt like I always felt the office, you were there. You experienced like we had this culture and you would come and even I got to meet everyone. And some of my best friends, a godfather to my youngest kid, is the first employee I ever hired at Live Person, Mike Colasso. And our families are great friends. I would never met him if I didn't start the company. So I always looked at the company as this experience to of connection. And the more diversity you meet, like of minds and people, the more you're going to grow as a human. So I just felt the company had this kind of purpose. Post COVID, it was like nobody cared. I just saw a place where people weren't really valuing that anymore, and they were valuing their individuality, which we're kind of in that place today. We're in a place of myself versus the community. You know,
You mentioned community, you mentioned having a relationship with God, you mentioned starting 2 new companies, and so what do you and volunteering at homeless shelters and sleeping on your couch, like, what do you think you have a purpose? And if so, what is that purpose?
it's interesting because when I left Live Person, I had a board member at Live Person called Peter Block, and he's like one of the foremost people on community and connection. He's written many books and worked. Anyway, somewhere like 5 years into him being a member, we were at some event and it was during a cocktail party. He said it was at tech, like a small tech event. And he said, all these people here, is all these CEOs of like everyone's so certain about everything they're doing. And he goes, I've got a question for you. He said, do you think what you're building is creating better community and connection? And I'm like, I couldn't answer the question. I felt like as a culture, we were trying to get because meaningful connections is one of our core values, but create meaningful connections. But I could not answer it as a company. So when I started these new companies, I've got one called Kid, which is a kid's device for children to bring AI safely in the home. And the other one is a platform for people to replicate themselves and own their own AI models. So they own their own data sets and models. I wanted to be able to answer the question. And so I felt like AI is this opportunity to redefine what an AI company is because no one defined it. And and I said, I think I can do this to actually put products in the world that can drive better connection, community, and creativity with people. So yeah, so I guess for me, I felt like I don't know, I have this kind of calling that I learned so much over 28 years of one company, but now I feel like I can apply it to this very massive change and that's going that right now is heading into a direction that's uncertain. Like it's a very uncertain time. Like we have big tech owning big models with a lot of big money, with a lot of big power. And that usually ends up in a really big mess. And so I feel like it should be small models, people owning their knowledge, their intelligence, being credited for that intelligence. And then on the other side, they can have that living inside of these devices that are unique and they're helpful. and I see a different world than the iPhone and large language models. And so that's the world I'm trying to create with these two companies. So yeah, so I feel like there's definitely I kind of feel much clearer purpose why Live Person where it sits in my life compared to where these two companies sit.
What do you see as the main differences between LivePerson and these 2 companies? Like, if you had to put it in a couple sentences.
I mean, Live Person had a very the product had a purpose. It was a very, it was chat and messaging and stuff, and it had a very tactical purpose and a utility. It was a utility. Anyways, where I think these companies are more about delivering this connection between human beings. Like I built this device called Kid, and it's really about children and their parents. I call it Bring Back the Bond. Having a device where they can create together, they can create stories together, they can create art together, they create music together, and I feel like because these device I see with my kids, I have three young kids. Like I'm on my phone, then they're grabbing my phone. I just feel like there is technology can play a part in bringing people together. Where today it's kind of ended in a place where it's we're fighting to be not disconnected. It's driving disconnection every day. We all know it. We're on a call, people there, they always talk about it. So I don't have to. There's people writing about it and research about it, but I can do something about it. Like I can actually build products, organize people, and drive something into the marketplace that people can have an alternative, because the alternative today is bad. It's large language models and devices that make our kids be addicts. Our kids are addicts. I mean, really, you think about a 12-step program. Not like what drove me is like my 7-year-old son a couple years ago, like at 3 o'clock in the morning, I hear noise and he's downstairs just going like this at 3 in the morning on an iPad. He didn't even know what time it was. He didn't know what he was doing. He didn't know it's the addict thing. Like he couldn't answer what are you up for? I don't know. Why are you looking at YouTube? I don't know. How do you know it's 3 o'clock in the morning? I don't know. So, he got out, his first instinct was that, not go back to bed, not go to the bathroom. His first instinct was jump on the drug. It's a drug for children. It's very bad.
So how are you aiming to change that with your current company?
The kid device is really about, it doesn't have the scroll, it doesn't have the internet. It takes the power of AI, and like a 4-year-old, my 4-year-old can create, can say, I want to have an image of a unicorn flying to Mars, or I want to create a story with daddy and me, and we're going on an island. And it creates all that. And the thing I see is that children have the best creativity. Like as we get older, we kind of lose it a little bit because of society, but they have so many wonderful things in their minds, and they can be great writers, great directors, great painters at just 4 years old, like at 5 years old, like because they can speak their minds and have the AI make it and create it. And that's where I see there's just a joy that comes with it. And that's why I wanted to create versus like get them on the, another thing that they're going like this and they're looking at how and the people who create that content are terrible people. Like most of the people who create content for children on YouTube Kids are just total bad human beings. They're not out to help children. They're not here to educate our children. They're here to get our kids to be addicts. And they disguise it as funny humor, animation, but it's really drug dealing to me. So it really is, it really is, and they know what they're doing over there. I mean, even at YouTube, the CEO said the other day, I don't let my kids like he doesn't let his kids use it. And he said, and I talked to some very senior executive a couple of months ago, and I asked her about it, and she was like, I won't let my kids scroll on YouTube. Like they know what they have. I don't mean to be so, but it's got to, they don't care. Just wants a lot of ads. So
Yeah, that's wow. I remember so I'm not the generation that got told, "Go outside and play in the sunshine and come back at 6, and then we'll all have dinner." That was my mom's generation. But I was kind of in the middle. I think I started using I think I had a cell phone maybe in 6th grade,
yeah,
and I started using computer, like, very old school computer, but around 3rd grade. But what I love about what you said is that AI can be a crutch, but it can also expand our imaginations to something that we never knew was possible.
yeah. I mean, there's two parts that it does for us. It can allow us to be our best creators, and it can allow us to get leverage on our time. As in, the other business, AI, we allow people, they replicate themselves and they replicate their personalities and everything, and the ability to have people access that can really access your essence, can access your X factor of your knowledge, is empowering. Versus we keep giving our knowledge into chat gpt or whatever, we keep like using that, it's taking our knowledge, and then it we don't even get credit for it, like it's getting smarter, and then there's this perspective that we're getting dumber, and we're starting to idolize. What's going to happen is it's idolatry. It's like we're idolizing technology that is better and above us. And it's like the first time that we really think like it's got they always put it out, it's got a PhD, like it's always a PhD this and a PhD that. And no, it's got my knowledge in it. Like it's a dumb machine. If all of us took our knowledge out of that machine tomorrow, it would do nothing. It's not a sentient being. It's just it's a vacuum cleaner of knowledge of humanity. And then it's trying to repackage it as in a weird way and making us all think we're dumb. Like, I have doctors, we work with like neurosurgeons and people like that who replicate, and they're like, God, it's getting as smart as I am. I'm like, yeah, because you keep giving it your data. Like it is going to be, if you keep giving it your knowledge about your business, it's going to act as smart as you. Like, but it wasn't. So the person's like, yeah, 2 years ago it wasn't that good, but now it's really good. I'm like, because a bunch of people in your field of business gave it your knowledge, and now it's smart. So like, well, it has to stop. All that has to stop. Then the problem with kids, as you read, is like there are kids who are using it and they end up killing themselves and hurting themselves because it's kind of that kind of an engine. It kind of leads you down any road you want to go down. So in our case, we built a device that's really about just for children's 4 to 12 years old. The models are made for 4 to 12-year-old. It wasn't like an adult model that we're trying to fit into a child. So look, AI safety is the biggest part. I saw some senators got together yesterday and we're like, we're going to investigate AI child's toys because there were a lot that being dumped on the market, which is general, chat GPT, or there was some from China with the Chinese model, and they're not safe. We just got we got 2 days ago, we got COPA compliant, which is the highest, is an FTC rating for the safety of children in India. So we just got our COPA compliance. So
Congratulations.
that's, yeah, it's a really high honor to get it. So like, cause we spent a year working on it with the company that certified us. And we, from the beginning, purpose built with them, helping us to understand how do we build this thing so we could get the certification.
How do you think that comes back to, everything you're doing? How do you think that comes back to your higher sense of self?
It goes back to like, I want to know that we're, especially with kids, like kids and families, I want to know that I'm putting something in the market that could serve my family, and that ultimately it's serving this purpose of bringing families together, and not just one more thing in the home where parents have to fight with the kids, or it creates another addiction, or it just creates another disconnected moment in a family. And I get, I'm older, but I have these three young kids, 9, 7, and 5. And, living with young kids and seeing what I've seen through the technology arc and lens is just so fascinating, and seeing how they approach technology for good or bad. So, and there's a little bit too much bad versus good. And I just feel like that needs to be changed, because AI should not be a scary thing or something that parents now don't want in their home. It should be something that's embraced for what it does well, which is create, help you create.
Yeah, I agree with that. I definitely was an AI addict at one point, but I have a very addictive personality, so that tracks. I will I will latch onto something, but right now it's not AI, it's indoor cycling. So, I'm just like, "You know what? I have an addictive personality. I have to obsess over something, so I'm gonna obsess over exercise."
That's entrepreneurial. All entrepreneurs have addictive personalities. That's what make us, or addictive and obsessive. So like, we are, we have to be committed on a different level to whatever it is. And it's funny because there's things in my life where more entertaining things I've gotten involved with, and like sports and something, I just go all in. I'm like, I have to do it like to the I have to become a master. I used to do this thing called capoeira. It's like a Brazilian dance martial art. I was a capoeirista. It was just the funniest thing. I just would, and it just, I think it's just the nature of a certain personality. Like that's what makes people like us, you build and because you'll go all the way, whatever all the way is.
Yes, it definitely can be a double-edged sword.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Some of my friends are all thinking like, you're like, what do sometimes my friends in the past will be like, what are you doing? You're like, you do capoeira. And I'm like, yeah, it's so cool. I get martial arts dance. I'm like, okay, fine. It's like, you know, and
do
then
you consider
I came everything capoeira. I had they out like my friend, everything, you do everything around them. But yeah, is what it is. So
Yeah, no, but I think yeah, I was talking to someone on a podcast guest a while ago when I first started, and they said being a founder is like a drug.
yeah, it's definitely, and I've unfortunately seen, I mean, I've seen myself at the beginning and I learned a lot because I failed and I had to kind of clean up my act through like working with Dr. Frank. I've also done like the Tony Robbins stuff. I have coaches over the years. Like you can't get to where I got and continue without a help. You have to keep thinking through things. But I've helped and coached some CEOs and stuff. And like the two deadliest things founders, two deadliest things of founders is certainty and control. When you over control and you want certainty, and preeminence is the other one. Like if you're all about your ego and getting that hit of, hey, I'm important, and you want certainty, which are these two things, they can destroy you because building a business is, if you over rotate on those two things, you're going to end up in trouble, whether you like it or not, because you're going to be you're going to be high control. Good people usually don't want to work with you. You're not going to be able to really scale. You're going to stay a small, and most time you'll fail because it's just the way it works. So
Did you learn that the hard way?
yeah, yeah, I definitely learned it the hard way. Like I failed enough times early on that I was like, okay, you know, but obviously people build companies because they want control. Like you want control on a different level that you don't think you can get working for anybody. So you ultimately want to be the master of your own destiny. How you control the functioning of that or dysfunctioning of that is the part that's hard. And a lot of times you have to get burned and lose a lot and have problems and fail enough times to be like, okay, something I'm doing here is not working for me. So
I've definitely failed enough times. What did I interviewed this person who said they these my podcast guest can say it so much better than I can, but she mentioned, like, failing herself into success. I thought that was a great line.
or fell forward. A lot of I've heard
Or
the
bit.
say fell
Mhm.
forward. But I think, look, you don't want to fail. You don't want to fail twice on the same thing. You want to fail once on it and learn and move forward. But you don't, make it. Sometimes you do make the mistake twice. But it goes down to like, you can't look for health over sickness, wealth over poverty. You That's just like it is what it is. It's what I learned recently on my journey with getting closer to God. Like it is just what it is. Like you can't want something over something. It will be what it will be, regardless. And so when you really think about it, in this kind of formation I'm in now, in this journey I've been on since May, it's like the CEO of this business is God. Like there's a CEO above you. And when you think of that, yes, I am working for somebody. I am not the full control. Things will happen outside of my control, and maybe everything. I often think maybe everything's outside my control, and maybe I'm part of this thing, but maybe there's a lot that I don't even understand that's going to happen whether I wake up or not. That'll happen whether I think I'm going to push it forward or not. So it still doesn't relieve you of the fact that you want very high standards and high quality of your products. You want to be committed, and you gotta drive people around a vision, and they want to follow that vision. You have to be a leader, and you have to be up in front. So I just think, but there may just be, I think there's something else that's out there that's kind of, it is what it is.
I really feel that I'm most likely gonna lose my parents. I won't age myself, but I'm kinda aging myself by 40 with what they have, and my mom probably earlier, but my mom, said something. She said she's pretty spiritual herself, and she said, "You know, I think my lesson in life that, universe, God, whatever you wanna call it, has taught me that is that the more I try to control the chaos, the more life throws at me."
Yeah, that makes sense. That kind of makes sense to me. It's like, yeah, yeah. And if you've been through enough in life, you realize that, on the other side of whatever that moment is, you're always in a time of sort of like healing and learning, if you know what I mean. Like that you're in there's a cycle at the same exact time where you're learning, you're healing. And so we have to think through that. That's just kind of the cycle. So, that you're right. It's just, this chaos, whether that's the learning part and you're in that and you're healing, or the healing part, whatever, however part, you're moving through something. And if you try not to, you try to over rotate on it, it's going to be in balance anyway. It'll keep pushing in the other direction to get you in that cycle of healing and learning. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like a pendulum. You
Yeah.
just
Yeah. Goes back and forth. And I don't know if there's really a balance in it all, but if you have this sense that there's something else out there, there's like the CEO of you. It's a good title for a book, The CEO of You. But if there's a CEO of you out there, then it kind of like it doesn't relieve you of your it is really interesting because my transformation in the last 5 months, there's a moment in time where I never you think I've always been in charge of something and responsible. And I've heard that, interesting enough, from other entrepreneurs, they almost think that if they let it go, if they let that part go, that they won't be successful. That if they let go of the control, if they let go of it could be the dysfunction, the thing that makes them feel not good, the thing that's in their mind, a lot of it is about the little voice in your head telling you, you're not going to make it, you're not good, you're going to be a failure. And they think that drives me. That drives me. If that thing wasn't in my head, God, I wouldn't be the person I am. It's not true. It's like, actually, I saw it because as I've let go of that over the years, like, you're still going to get up in the morning early and you're still going to work late. You're still going to try to get your goals done. It doesn't relieve you of the commitment you have to your life, but it just kind of relieves you of that thing that makes you feel like you're not the best person you could be.
yeah, for sure. I've had this conversation with friends of mine over the years because I got dealt or at least in the past, because I was dealt such a tough set of cards, I had that intrinsic, like, just, "I am gonna do anything to succeed, and I am going to prove all of you wrong, and, just because I have a mood disorder, I'm gonna, rise to the top." And and at the end of the day, it's like, you can either think about the bad, all the bad and all the things that you're gonna use to power forward, or you can think about how amazing the amazing moments in your life. And I think that brings it back to the it is what it is.
Yeah, look, I don't know everything about your background and you don't know everything about mine, but let's just say I give you a deck of cards and I say there's 52 cards in the deck, and each one of those represents what life could be. One card is you're a billionaire on a yacht in the Mediterranean. The other part is you're born into the Sudan right now and you're being hunted down and you're being killed. You're a baby who was born with some disease. You're going to die in 2 weeks. So if I held those cards out in a fan and said, pick one, would you want to pick one over the current life you have? Would you want to take the chance? And I think most people would say, no effing way. I'll just stick with what I got because as much as I could hit that card, I don't want to hit because, if you really think about it, it seems like out of 52 cards, there's 50 of them that could be pretty bad. And there's like two that could be like my life and maybe something better. But there's like 50 of them in there that could be something because you see it in the world. There's like around us, there is a lot of situations of people's lives that are just unlivable.
Oh,
They're
definitely.
they're not like we're sitting on a podcast and okay, we're doing
No.
issue with we're talking about people living in a place right now where they think somebody could burst into my door and murder me and my family for just because we have a certain background, religion, we live in the wrong place, or we can't eat today because I was born in the wrong place. There's no food, or I got a place where there's a lot of disease and I can't. I mean, it's just you can write this. The human stories are 50 of them are not something you want to be a part of, and we're lucky. So
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I used to kinda almost flaunt my what everything that I've been through and how I deserve this and how I deserve that, but you're not deserve, but I'm gonna prove this I'm gonna prove everyone wrong kinda thing, but to your point, we're sitting here on a podcast, and any given day I read this newsletter 1440. It's like a I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's like a recap of the news every day, and at any given moment, there's a tsunami or there's a war in a part of the world, and all the stories that we don't hear, like you said, like, some people are afraid even in the United States, like, some people are afraid to wake up in the morning.
well, yeah, and but the majority of what goes on obviously is there's a lot of good stuff. I always feel like though that like goes back to my living on the couch, and I still have my couch, which is it's a remembrance of and that time that things could always be back in the couch, and and then I remember feeding people in a shelter. I'm like, you could end up anywhere. So, look, the bottom line is building things. I go back to like being here, like building companies or building whatever dream you have is a it's an uncertain task. It's one that may not give you anything, or it may give you, but it will give you, may not give you riches, may not give you rewards, may not give you, you're known as someone in the world and people are praising you on Instagram or Twitter, but it's going to give you your life. And whatever that is, you know, it's pretty good. So, like the problem is we're living, as I want to say, is like the world, especially the world in our phones, looks like a fabulous world with fabulous everything. And the reality is like, it's like if I see one more person who posted, I made $1 million in a week, or, and now it's about funny. I was going to sell myself to, whatever for 1 billion, and now I didn't, and now we're worth 6 billion. I mean, I'm like, all of this gets. I saw the .com where I was in the middle of the previous explosion of notoriety and wealth, and I lived in the middle. And so many .comers, my God, it was extraordinary. We're up there and praised, and you don't even know they're nameless now because most of them lost their jobs, lost their money, and lost everything, and they just went away, and peacefully they went away because they didn't have social media to kind of like not go away peacefully, and they couldn't make a podcast or do something. They just went away and did whatever you do when you fail at that level. So I've seen it, and it's the same stuff. People making up things and trying to get the rest of everyone to feel bad. And the reality is, whatever life you're leading, you just got to lead it. You know what I'm saying? Lead it, not follow it. Lead it, and that's the hard part. Like lead it. Get up in the morning and lead the life you want to lead. Whether you're running sales, or you're working at a company or running your own business, it's you got to lead.
I say this every time, but everyone gives me the title of the podcast at the end of the show. It's like a weird sort of thing. Well, this was awesome. Thank you so
Great.
much, Rob. It was really great to reconnect after
Yeah, I
all
know.
these
I
years.
I just remember how wonderful you were and everything. It's so funny as we're talking. I was making a joke there for a second, like, but as you were talking, now I remember you. It's funny, like the mind, yeah, because yeah, and now I can see you in that setting because for some reason, as we talk now, your voice and your face just kind of, I felt like now you were there. You know what I'm saying?
That's
When
pretty cool.
when you originally, I was like, I don't remember you, and then I'm like, okay, I now remember. So
Well, that's pretty sweet.
we're
Well, what you're
connected.
doing is amazing. Where can we find you?
So you can find me at kidco.ai is the kid, and letter U ARE.ai is the company where we do individual AIs. And but if you're a parent, you have a place and a device now to give to your kids. That's going to be a really wonderful experience. And if you want to, not be hijacked and have all your knowledge taken by a large language model, you can have your own small model. And we call it the human life model. That's based on your wonderful self. And so come to URAI and sign up, get on the list, and we'll be live in a few weeks. So
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Rob. Congratulations.
thank you. Thanks for everything.
That's a wrap for Revenue Mind, where we cut the BS and spotlight mental health and revenue leadership. I'm Jolie. We're reminding you your mindset is your competitive edge. Thanks for listening. See you next time.